Hello, good morning. Welcome to Gaming Insight Daily for Wednesday, June 11th, 2025. I'm Steve Saylor. This is your daily show of gaming news, accessibility news, or updates about my life. I have coffee in my tea, Earl Grey hot Star Trek mug. I know it's maybe sacrilege to be able to put coffee in it in this, but it is a coffee mug, so leave me alone. So today is going to be a lot of sales updates. I know it sounds, it sounds so glamorous, sounds so wonderful, but we do actually have some big news when it comes to these sales updates. So don't turn away, don't click off the video just yet, because we have some record, like history-making news to start off with today. This is by Andy Robinson over at VGC. Nintendo Switch 2 sells 3.5 million in 4 days, likely the biggest console launch ever. Fans around the world are showing their enthusiasm for Nintendo Switch 2 as an upgraded way to play at home and on the go, said Nintendo of America President Doug Bowser in a prepared statement. We are thankful for the response and happy to see the fun they are already having with Nintendo Switch 2 as they explore new features and games that bring friends and family together in new ways. Nintendo Europe boss Luciano Pereira commented, Nintendo Switch 2 represents the next evolution of Nintendo Switch, and we're very happy and grateful to see it already being embraced by so many players across Europe. We look forward to seeing players connecting through games like Mario Kart World, sharing the experience with friends and family, whether near or far. In comparison, PlayStation 5 shipped, not sold, 3.4 million units in its first 4 weeks on sale, and 4.5 million in its first 7 weeks, though Sony consoles suffered from significant stock shortages. The huge start for Switch 2 will give Nintendo a boost in reaching its target of 15 million units for its first business year, or even beating this number, which many analysts predict the console will do. If Switch 2 surpasses 15 million units in its opening year, it will beat what the original Switch managed. PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 launched later in the year and sold around 7.5 million units each, with the latter suffering stock issues due to the pandemic. There was actually something that I need to be able to find, I think, because there was something about that there was comparisons between the sort of there was basically like they were comparing it to between like the other launches of consoles that I kind of want to be able to bring up. I saw it on Blue Sky that I'm realizing that I should have taken a look at this as well. I'm trying to look at another article here. Let's see, for perspective. Oh yeah, I'm reading this off of Insider Gaming by Andrew Hyten. Andrew says, for perspective, no console has come close to that level of sales in 24 hours. Let me see. Oh yeah, sorry. I've now heard from 3 independent. According to Nintendo Prime via Paul Gale, I have now heard from 3 independent people that Nintendo has globally shifted over 3 million Switch 2 units. This doesn't include any additional sales made today already and over the opening weekend. For perspective, no console has come close to that level of sales in 24 hours. Over a 24-hour launch, the previous record was held by PS4, which sold just over 1 million units worldwide. The 2-month total record is around 4.5 million units held by PS5. Okay, so this is definitely before. Yeah, this is definitely written before the article or before this the press release came out, because they do have I'm trying to be able to find this here because there was something about the PS2, I think, that it's Switch 2 is on pace to outsell the 3-year lifetime sales of Steam Deck in 1 to 2 weeks on the market. Steam Deck is a great device, but has never been fair comparison. Okay, between Switch and handhelds. Okay, pretty much everyone basically says that it's just Yeah, here we go. So Nintendo Switch 2 sold over 160,000 units in the UK. Fastest selling. Okay, I do have an article about the UK one, but I want to be able to get to that. Yeah, sorry. I thought this article would have included something about PS2. I remember seeing this kind of like pop up yesterday, but I guess not. So, but yeah, back to the article itself. Nintendo Switch 2 released on June 5th alongside Mario Kart World, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, as well as The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, and Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 Edition. Dr. Sirkan Todo, CEO of Tokyo-based game industry consultancy Catan Games, told VGC that Nintendo now needs to follow up its launch success with more blockbusters in the lead up to Christmas. Okay, that's pretty much about it. So, what does this mean? So 3.5 million units in its first 4 days. You got to think of the greater context of what this actually means. So yes, it is likely that this is the biggest console launch ever. Beating out every console that release with it. Like selling 3.5 million units in 4 days is a huge amount. But there's also, sorry, I'm just gonna spit. I was gonna just held my breath in. Because there's several factors that come into play here. A, there was a complaint about price because it was a little bit more expensive in a lot of countries, including here in Canada. It was about $600, $629 for the base unit, and $699 for the bundle with Mario Kart World. So we have that. There was also the tariffs. There's also been the controversy of like $80 games and stuff. And also, hey, there's also technically a recession. There's not enough money to be able to go around for additional spending in people's households or discretion. I don't know what is the phrase I'm looking for. It's something spending anyway. My brain is just kind of all over the place this morning. I apologize, but it's like, so there's not a lot of money to basically be spent around for a console. But then also as well, if you think about it, this is like there's also still a ton, or not a ton, but there are still Switch 2s on the shelf. On store shelves. Like I've heard stories of some of my friends are like they've went into Best Buys, went into Walmarts, and to GameStops, and there are Switch 2s available for people to be able to buy off shelves. So they're not necessarily as sold out as before, and that goes to show how much Nintendo was prepared in launching this. That they not only did they have 3.5 million units for people to buy. And that does include pre-orders as well. I should probably mention that too. But it also goes to show that they also were very prepared for people being able to come in and be able to purchase it day one as well. And they still had inventory left over. That we'd heard stories about, well, the Switch 2 was going to launch in 2024 or end of 2023. We heard a bunch of those that they were going to like launch it at any given point within the past year, literally the past year. But the fact that they delayed it and essentially launched it in June of 2025 basically kind of proves to the theory of that they held off on selling the Switch 2 so they can get more units made and units for first day sales, or at least for launch sales. And I think that is a genius move from Nintendo's part. I mean, they probably saw it coming. The writing was on the wall, so it's not necessarily a genius insight, but it was a genius move for Nintendo to basically be like, let's make sure that we have enough to be able to buy, for people to buy in store, to be able to pre-order online, and still have enough for anyone who wants to be able to pick up a sales unit. And now that it's out, the word of mouth is only going to spread. So at first, when we heard that, oh, Switch 2 is selling 15 million units in its operating in its first year, that sounds like a lot in comparison to other consoles that have launched within that period of time. We got to remember that yes, the Switch was out in 2017, but we also saw the launch of a PS5 and the Xbox Series X. And even in this article, I think they said that the PS5 didn't even PlayStation 5 shipped, not sold, 3.4 million units in its first 4 weeks on sale, and 4.5 million in its first 7 weeks. So the fact that the Switch 2 already outsold, not even shipped. Again, when it says shipped, not sold, that means that 3.4 million units were shipped to stores to customers, that kind of thing. So it's not necessarily these are how many units that were sold, but the fact that it was 3.5 million sold in 4 days, that is a huge number. And again, it's the looks like the biggest console launch of all time. Now, will Nintendo keep that momentum going with being able to release more games? It looks like we probably will. There is still a rumor that we will see a Switch 2 Direct by the end of this month, which potentially could lead up to what will be launched for the rest of the year. I mean, we already know some games that they're claiming to be 2025. Like, we already know Donkey Kong Bonanza is coming out in July. We know Metroid Prime 4 is coming out this year. All of the launch games that they kind of had mentioned, or games that they mentioned, like Dragon Drive, and a few a few others that they kind of like. Kirby is also in there. Kirby Air was Air. I'm blanking again. My coffee hasn't kicked in yet, so I'm so out of it. But we still have a good deal amount to know about what is the rest of this year going to look like for Nintendo. So I would say a Direct will be coming relatively soon to kind of give us that a little bit more of that definition of what the rest of the year will be like, and more likely we'll see release dates for some of the games that we're kind of hoping for. And I think this is great. Congratulations on Nintendo. I'm so happy with my Switch 2 right now. I've been playing, again, a lot of Cyberpunk on it right now, which is running really, really well. I'm still amazed by how well that game runs on that system. It's not the best quality overall. It's not quality of PCs or consoles, but it still runs really well, even on quality mode. And yeah, like there's the occasional frame drop, but there was a theory that actually my friend Marcel kind of told me about, that it was some frame drops whenever the game is doing its autosave. And I haven't really noticed that on my end, but he said he noticed it whenever you would go to a different district or a new district, which the game is set up to be autosaved whenever you enter a new district. That's kind of where it drops the frames a little bit in order to be able to do the autosave. So I'm wondering if that is kind of the what is actually happening, and maybe the patch that's coming out in June, because they did say that there is going to be a 2.5 patch, I think is what they're labeling it as, will come out sometime in June, I think within the next week or so. I think that's what they said, or CD Projekt Red had said, and there's going to become new content as well. So that's going to be fascinating to see as well. So again, and I love it. I've been loving playing Cyberpunk on it, and yeah, it's a little bit uncomfortable because I think it's more, I'm used to like having a grip on the controllers, and I'm having to be able to kind of hold anyway. But hey, congrats to Nintendo selling through that. We knew that it was going to sell well. We just didn't know how well. And I think some people probably would have predicted that it would have sold extremely well. I was kind of on the side of, I would love it to be able to sell pretty well, but not as record breaking as this. But speaking of the sales, we're kind of jumping to the UK side of things for a sec, because VGC is in the UK, just as a heads up if you didn't know. But this is also by Andy Robinson over at VGC. Switch 2 is UK's biggest Nintendo launch, but sales didn't come close to PS5. That's according to Nielsen IQ data published by the Game of Business. While no specific sales numbers were shared, so Switch 2's launch sales are said to have beaten the company's previous best-selling hardware launch, 2010's Nintendo 3DS, on 113,000 units. According to Nielsen IQ, Switch 2 outsold the original Nintendo Switch launch 80,000 units by more than 2 to 1, though it's worth noting Nintendo Switch was very supply constrained in its opening months. That's for the original Switch. However, it said in Switch 2 launch sales didn't come close to the biggest UK's console launch of all time, which is the PlayStation 5. Switch 2 is the fourth best-selling console in terms of units, according to the data behind PS5, PS4, and Xbox Series, and third best in terms of revenue behind PS5 and Xbox Series. So UK's best-selling console launches: PlayStation 5, PS4, Xbox Series, Nintendo Switch 2, and PlayStation 3, Xbox One, Nintendo Wii, Nintendo Switch 360, and Xbox One X. It's worth noting that the UK has traditionally not been the strongest market for Nintendo, with Wii having been outsold by Xbox 360 and Switch outsold by PS4, despite leading global sales. And this kind of came out, I think, before the announcement of the record-breaking sales from the Switch 2. And that's, I wanted to put this in here because essentially, like, it goes to show that, yeah, okay, it's outselling everywhere, or the biggest console launch of all time, but it depends also on the country of where these consoles are being sold. As the article said, the UK is not Nintendo's strongest market, and I'd be actually very curious to be able to see what the breakdown of Switch 2 sales were from. Were they from the Western market within North America? Were they mostly in Japan? I would love to be able to see kind of like the breakdown as far as like the top markets of sales for Switch 2 to see kind of who came out on top. Mostly just to kind of see like where's Nintendo's biggest audience right now. I think that like we sort of think of it as Japan because it is Nintendo is a Japanese company, but the way that obviously Western sort of gaming is kind of has adopted the Switch and the Switch 2, I would be willing to bet that North America is definitely high up there for sure. So I'd be very curious to see what those numbers were like. And then again, speaking of sales, this is by Jordan Miller over at VGC. Switch 2 version helped Street Fighter 6 reach major sales milestone. The fighting game, which was released in 2023 on PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, and Steam, was one of 2 Capcom titles to launch alongside the Nintendo Switch 2 last week. Street Fighter 6 and Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess, both released on Nintendo's latest console at launch. The Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game has pushed the latest entry in the legacy fighting game franchise over 5 million copies sold. This places Street Fighter 6 as the 16th best-selling Capcom game ever and the second best-selling Street Fighter game ever. Only Street Fighter 5 has sold more at just under 8 million units according to Capcom, so it's already more than halfway there. Over the weekend, Capcom confirmed the game's third year of DLC content, which they've kind of released during Summer Game Fest. And yeah, congrats to Street Fighter 6. I have been a big fan of Street Fighter 6 ever since it came out because it has a great amount of accessibility. I haven't tried it on the Switch 2 to see if the same accessibility is parity on the Switch 2 versus its console counterparts or console partners, not partners, platforms. I really do need to be able to. I'm sorry. My vocabulary is not strong this morning for some reason. Anyway, so yes, and also with the fact that yes, it is the second largest sales for the Street Fighter series, the Street Fighter 5. Street Fighter 5 was a huge hit. And already if Street Fighter 6 basically within 2 years is almost like it's sold more than half of what Street Fighter 5 was, I think that like whether or not it's going to keep selling that for that amount or it has a great momentum right now because of the Switch 2, I don't know. But it's just great to be able to see that Capcom has another hit on their hands. Like the fact that they have. It mentions in the article that is the 16th highest selling Capcom game ever. Kind of goes to show how well Capcom is doing. I've said it before. Capcom is on a huge hit train. Just within the past few years, they have the entire Resident Evil franchise that has been always a huge hit, even with the remakes of older games. They've done extremely well in that regard. Obviously Street Fighter, huge sales for them. Monster Hunter World, I mean, if you think about it, Monster Hunter Wilds is essentially the top selling game of this year so far. So Capcom is again and what I love is that at least Capcom is also considering accessibility too. They are still not at any point where they are fully accessible. There are a lot of holes that in the disability spectrum that they haven't hit, but they are making concerted efforts to be able to make their games more accessible. I mean, case in point with just Street Fighter 6. They do not include a screen reader in order to be able to navigate the menus, but when you can get into a fight, they do have a radar type sort of sound cues for blind players to be able to know how close they are to the enemies and how further away they are. So that and also the control scheme from going from dynamic to modern to original classic is huge for a lot of players who are just wanting to be able to jump into Street Fighter series for the first time or jumping into fighting games for the first time. But then also for disabled players, they can try out dynamic to see if it works for them. Then they can move on to modern, be able to remap controls for that. And that's great for like motor disabled players. So like there's a lot of other disabled players that enjoy that as well, including myself. So Street Fighter, like that Street Fighter 6 is definitely a big game for accessibility. It's not fully accessible. Like I would say that Mortal Kombat 1 sort of wins in that regard for accessible fighting games, but Street Fighter 6 definitely put in a great amount of effort, and that should be applauded. Even though they may not hit everything, Capcom is doing quite a bit in that space so far, which has been really great to see. So yeah, I mean, that's just kind of really it for the sales numbers. I know that's kind of a shortish episode, but I'd love to be able to kind of hear your thoughts. Do you have a Switch 2 right now? Are you looking to get a Switch 2? Are you excited about these sales numbers, or do you think that this is kind of overblown? Do you think that it's just another, like, this is a sort of like showing Nintendo they can still do whatever they want and not sort of have to cater to the negative sort of press that they've had over the past few weeks? Because I've heard a lot from friends that they were just kind of like, this is stupid of Nintendo to be able to do these $80 games, or setting the price at this amount, like, or just all the weird sort of stuff like the virtual game cards, blah 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 blah, all that stuff. Like, I've heard a lot from my friends are like, this is doom and gloom for Nintendo. This is not they're doing idiotic moves, and yet it doesn't really matter. With all of that, they still had the biggest console launch of all time. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this as well. Let me know in the comment section down below. I know this video may not get a lot, probably a lot of views. I'm trying to be able to do my best to be able to kind of cover at least one main kind of like news story, at least a news story that has a central theme to it. So I really would love to be able to also hear your thoughts as well. Do you like these kind of like more focused episodes where it's just kind of more focused on one story or one theme around a particular story, or do you like it when I kind of go through multiple different stories like I've done in the past? I'll be able to hear your thoughts on that. I know if you got this far in the video, you at least care enough about my show that you want to be able to see it. You want to see it grow and you like seeing these kind of episodes for me. So I'll be able to hear your thoughts as well. All right, take care. Have yourself a good one, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.